Okay, let's learn. So, there's a lot to talk about. This week's parsha, there's a tremendous amount to talk about. So, right away, in this week's parsha Ki Sisa, right away, Hashem commands Moshe Rabbeinu to count the Jewish people. All right? Hashem tells Moshe Rabbeinu, Ki Sisa, Rosh B'nai Yisrael of Kudeim, that there's a mitzvah to count the Jewish people. And as we all know, you're not supposed to count every Jew, by his body. That gives ayin hara. So what did the Torah say? So the Torah said each and every Jew is supposed to give a machzah shekel, half a shekel. Half a shekel. The pasuk says, ha'ashir lo yarbe. A rich person can't give more, v'hadal lo yamit, and a poor person can't give less. Every single Jew, no matter any level of his wealth, has to give just a half a shekel. And they would count those shkolim to get the number of the Jewish people. So where did these shkolim go? After they were collected, what was used with these shekels? So Rashi brings down at the beginning of the parsha that the machzah shekel, the half shekels that were given as accounting the Jewish people, were turned into the adonim. They were turned into the sockets of the Mishkan. What does that mean? In the Mishkan, the walls of the Mishkan were made by big beams of wood, and as like the foundation for those pieces of wood, they made silver-like cases, silver sockets for the beams to be placed into. So, in other words, the machzah shekel, these half coins that every single Jew had to give the same exact amount, basically became the foundation of the Mishkan. Right? They turned them into the foundation, the sockets of the Mishkan. So question number one is, why is it that of all the materials, all the things that were necessary in the Mishkan, dafka the adonim, dafka the sockets, dafka the foundations of the Mishkan were made by these machzah shekel, by the half shekel coins that were given as from each and every Jew? Why? There were a lot of things in the Mishkan made out of silver. Why dafka these things were made from them? That's number one. Number two, most of our parsha is talking about the infamous story we're all aware of the Chet Egel, the sin of the golden calf. So we're all aware of the basic story, right? That Moshe Rabbeinu delayed, he was late, he was supposed to come down, according to their estimations, he's supposed to come down now, and he wasn't there yet, so they thought he died, and they went to Aaron, right, and they said, Moshe Rabbeinu is not here anymore, we need to make a god of some sort to lead us. And again, we all know they gave the gold and silver to him, and miraculously, through witchcraft, a calf came out of it, and and we all know the rest of the story. They served it, and it was a terrible tragedy. So the question, obviously, is just like, what's going on? We're talking about people that a few days before Hashem Himself revealed Himself to the Jewish people on Har Sinai. They heard the Ten Commandments from Hashem's mouth Himself, so to speak. How could it be that they felt to such a level where they're serving idols? How do we understand the sin of the golden calf? That's number two. Number three. There's something very strange in the pasuk itself. When the Jewish people went to Aaron to ask him to make a golden calf for them, they say the following thing: "V'ish Moshe lo yadana mehayilo," that this Moshe Rabbeinu, the man, Moshe Rabbeinu, the person, we don't know what happened to him. Right? They're saying that Moshe Rabbeinu was up; he should be down by now. We don't know what happened to Moshe. The problem is, why do they say "V'ish Moshe"? The person, Moshe Rabbeinu, the man, Moshe Rabbeinu, we don't know what happened to him. Just say, Moshe Rabbeinu, we don't know what happened. We don't know what happened to the Moshe Rabbeinu. The Ish Moshe, the man, Moshe Rabbeinu, we don't know. What does it mean? What are they trying to stress? What are they telling us? What's the Torah telling us by saying, the Ish Moshe, the man, Moshe Rabbeinu? Okay, so to understand this, we have to talk about something which is, something that's found in Chabad Hasidus, a very strong teaching found in the Baal Tanya, in the writings of the first Lubavitcher Rebbe, the Baal Tanya, and it's something each and every one of us has to know, and it gives us a little bit of an insight into ourselves, and how is it that we're supposed to serve Hashem. Also, happens to be tonight is Purim Katan. It's 2 Adars this year, so if it would be 1 Adar, we would be in Purim already. So it's not like that, unfortunately. So we have 2 Adars. So now it's Purim Katan. It's a mini Purim. So we have to talk about Purim a little bit. So how does all this affect Purim? What is the Chet Egel, the Mishkan? What does all this have to do with Purim? Because again, it's not a coincidence. Nothing's a coincidence. If it's Purim Katan right now, it's around Purim time, and we're landing this parsha, there's significance to that. So let's understand. Let me read you some of the words of Reb Chaim Vital. This is a teaching of Reb Chaim Vital that he said in the name of his Rebbe, the Arizal. This is the words of Reb Chaim Vital. Dilakol ish Yisrael. For every single Jew, echad tzaddik ve'echad rasha, whether he's a tzaddik or he's a rasha, it doesn't matter any of his levels. Every single Jew, yesh shtei neshamas. There are 2 souls to every single Jew. We're used to just the assumption that every person has a soul. The Reb Chaim Vital, the Arizal, is telling us that every Jew has two souls, really. The pasuk says, that Hashem said, I have created souls, plural. For each and every person, I have created two souls. These are two souls that Hashem implanted and embedded into each and every one of us. Nefesh achas. One soul is what's called the Nefesh HaBahamis, the animal soul. We'll talk about each one and what this means practically. There's such a thing in each and every one of us that's giving us life, that's called the animal soul. That what? That soul is connected to the blood of a person and to the heart of a person. It's that soul that's called the animal soul that gives a person life, that keeps the person breathing, that keeps him conscious. Like the pasuk says, Ki nefesh habasar b'dami, that the soul of a person, this soul is found in the blood. The fact that we're all alive and breathing and conscious and and being healthy, that's because of the nefesh habahamis, the animal soul. Umimena. Now it's from this soul, bois kol hamidas. From this soul comes all of our character traits. Every single one of them, whether they be good character traits or not so pleasant, it doesn't matter. Every single one of our personalities, it's coming from this soul that's called the animal soul. It's this soul that binds us to earth. It's this soul that gives us life as we see. Our consciousness, our bodies, our livelihood, our characters, our personalities, our IQ, everything is from this animal soul. And this animal soul is shared by Jews, non-Jews. Every single human being has that. Every single human being that's alive has an animal soul within him, keeping him going and giving him his midos, his character traits. That's one soul. But now then the Arizal goes on further. There's one other type of soul that's specific to Jewish people. All non-Jews have just this one animal soul, giving them life, keeping them going. The nefesh hashenis b'Yisrael, but there's a second soul that the Jewish people have, that every Jew has. Again, tzaddik rasha, every Jew has this. Hi chelek elakam imal mamish. The second soul is what's called the nefesh halakis, the godly soul. And this godly soul, which is specific to a Jew, is literally, he says, is chelek elakam mamish. It's a piece of God, so to speak. It's literally a piece of God that's been sent down into our bodies and into our lives. Kamashakosov, like the pasuk says, with Adam Harishon, the first man, v'yipach ba'apav nishmas chayim, that Hashem blew into his nostrils a soul of life. That soul was the godly soul. V'ata nefachtabi. We say in davening, in the beginning of davening, we say ata nefachtabi, that you have breathed into me a neshama tahora, a pure soul. Man de nofach mitoife nachvach, and Hashem blew it from part of him, so to speak. And he goes on to say, Kach al derech mashal neshamas Yisrael, so too it is with each and every Jew. Olu b'machshav, each and every Jew has within him a godly soul that's literally part of Hashem, so to speak. It's Hashem's thoughts, Hashem's mind, Hashem himself is invested into each and every one of us. So the Arizal is telling us an unbelievable teaching. This is something that's unbelievable, and it's to understand ourselves and to understand what we're doing here. It's so important to understand this. There's two souls in each and every person. There's a part of us that's in love with this world. Right? There's a part of us that we're all familiar with. Our personalities, our intellect, that's all the animal soul, giving us life in our bodies. But there's a part of us that's transcendent. There's a soul in us, in our bodies, that's above all things that are animalistic, all things that are physical, all things that are base. There's a part of us which is called nefesh alakis, a godly soul, literally a part of Hashem that's implanted in us, and this is what we live with. We live with a part of us that's connected to the earth, that's connected to animalistic aspects. Again, our characters, our tempers, our heart, our blood, things that are very earthly, and there's a part of us which is sublime, which is completely uplifted, completely supernal, completely godly. Now listen to this. We say this in Shema every single day. We say it twice a day. That there's a mitzvah in the Torah. One of the 613 mitzvahs is V'yahavta es Hashem Elokecha b'chol levavcha u'b'chol nafshecha. That a Jew has to love Hashem with all of his heart, with all of his soul. So just like there are two souls, there's two different aspects to our existence. There's the animal soul, and then there's the godly soul. So too, in the mitzvah of loving Hashem, we have to devote our lives. We have to deepen our love for Hashem in both aspects. So listen to this. Listen to the words of the Rambam. The Rambam says in Yosodei HaTorah, how is it that a Jew loves Hashem? What do we do to bring ourselves to love Hashem? These are the words of the Rambam. B'shah sheyispainin ha'adam. When a person thinks, and a person thinks deeply, b'maisav shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu, in Hashem's actions. We look at history, we look at the world around us, we see the things that Hashem has done for us. Ubruv hanifloyim. And a person focuses and thinks deeply about the things that Hashem has created in the world. Hagadolim, which are great. The yir mehem chachmasei, and you could attain some level, we could appreciate Hashem's greatness from the world around us. She'ein la'arch v'lo kates, and we could recognize that Hashem's wisdom and Hashem's greatness is without end. It's without measure. Miyad, from that understanding, from focusing on the world, looking at the world in the proper way, searching Hashem in this world, miyad hu oyev u'mishabeach, then you could come to love Hashem. So when the pasuk says v'yahavtas Hashem l'kecha, that a Jew has to love Hashem, the Rambam is saying, how do you get to love Hashem? Look in nature, look in the world around you, look in your own personal life, see and try to find Hashem's hand, see the greatness of His deeds, look at the unbelievable universe that Hashem created, and if you focus on that, you'll reach the love of Hashem. The Sfarim explained that this way of loving Hashem, the Rambam is saying, by looking at nature, by looking at the world, by trying to understand the world around us in a deeper way and to try to come to Hashem's greatness through the world, that is the way that the animal soul loves Hashem. Because the animal soul, again, that we said before, that the Arizal said that each and every one of us, the connection that we have to this world, the fact what keeps our bodies going, what keeps our personality going, what gives us our personality is the animal soul. That animalistic part of us, that part of us is in love with the world. There's a part of us that really, really loves the world, loves food, and loves, relationships down here, and loves walking, seeing nature and all that stuff. Loves this world, and loves everything that this world means. So I'm saying, how do we get that part of us to love Hashem? We have no choice but to play its game. To look at nature, to look at the world around us, to try to appreciate Hashem from the world that we see. Within our world, within nature, within the universe, that part of us is naturally drawn to and is naturally connected to, we have to sort of harness that to focus on spirituality, to focus on Hashem, to try to find Hashem in the world that we're so deeply attached to by the animal part of us. But there's a problem. There's a tremendous, tremendous danger with trying to find Hashem in this way, so focused on the world that we see. There's a famous story that Rav Nachman Breslover used to say. He used to call them very ancient stories of old. They were his parables that he said, and he said in these parables were contained all the mysteries of the Torah. One of the stories that Rav Nachman used to say is a story called The Lost Princess. It's a very long story, but just in a part of it I'll say over for what we're learning now. The story goes very much bekitzer that there was a king. And this king, again, was the king of the entire planet. He ruled everything. And he had one daughter. The princess. Something happened, and the princess got lost. The princess was lost. She was kidnapped. We don't know what happened to the princess. So the general, the one that's, the second to the king, the beloved general of the king, says to the king, listen, I'm going to do whatever I can. I'm going to search all four corners of the world. I'm going to rescue the princess. I'm going to rescue the princess and bring her back. That's what he says. So Rav Nachman goes on to say, that he tried to figure out where she was kept, and he heard rumors of where she was. Eventually it turned out that he found out that she was kept in an extremely magnificent palace on the other side of the world. The ends of the earth in a magnificent palace in a beautiful city. So the Rav Nachman went on to say that this general crossed all deserts and all oceans to try to, with 100% dedication, to find the princess and to bring her back to the king. What happened was, when he entered this beautiful Gan Eden, this city that the princess was kept in, it was an absolutely magnificent city. But he kept his focus. Instead of, falling in love with the town and forgetting his mission, he kept his focus on finding the princess, on focusing on that. And when he got closer and closer to where she was kept, the city, the palace, it kept on getting even more magnificent and more breathtaking. Until a point where he was mamish right by the entrance of where she was kept, the room that she was kept in. And something caught his eye. I don't know, there was a big banquet or something. Something caught his eye and he forgot. He forgot what he was there for. And he lost his focus and he started eating. And Rav Nachman said that from his eating and drinking he fell asleep. And only years later did he wake up to realize that he was so close to saving the princess and it was all lost. He forgot it all because he just got so distracted by the place that he was looking for her. So too it is with all of us. Again, like the Arizal is saying, there's a part of us which is in love with this world. There's a part of us which is so animalistic and so earthly That there's a part of us we can't escape it. That there's a part of us that loves everything in this world and all pleasures in this world. And the Rambam is saying we have no choice but to recognize that and admit that to ourselves, but try to find Hashem in the world. Try to find Him within the things that we love. But there's such a danger. Just like the princess in the story means the divine presence. It's the divine presence, Hashem's presence in this world, and Hashem's presence has been cast into all four corners of this world. Hashem's princess, so to speak, His presence is lost. And He sent each and every one of us down here to rescue that princess, to restore His presence to its full glory. But there's such a danger. The more we look in the places that the divine presence is kept, in all the beautiful parts of this world, and we try to retain our focus. We try to just control ourselves and to try to find Hashem's presence in all beautiful things in this world. There's such a danger of us getting lost and forgetting our mission. Dafka, through our attention to this world, through the animal part of us, which could be used to love Hashem, which could be trained to love Hashem, it's so easily swayed. It's so easily corrupted. It's so easily, it easily forgets what its focus is. So how do we love Hashem? How do we love Hashem in a different way? So listen to what the Baal Tanya writes. Listen to what the Baal Tanya writes. This is again in Sefer Tanya, Perek Yud Tes. Listen to this. It says in Pasuk, Ner Hashem Nishmas Adam, that the soul of a person, Ner, is considered a candle of Hashem. The soul of a Jew, which is not the animal soul, the godly soul, the second soul that's sublime, that's uplifted, that's godly inside in each and every Jew, is compared to a candle. That's what the Pasuk says. It's compared to a flame. So listen to what the Tanya says. Pirish, She Yisrael Akrim Adam, the Jewish people who are called the true man, true mankind is the Jewish people. Nishmasam hi lamashal ka'ar haner. The godly soul that's in specifically the Jewish people is compared to a candle. If we light a candle, if you look at a candle, what happens? What's the instinct? What's the nature of a flame? The nature of a flame is shemisnaneya tamid lamal b'tivai. A flame is instinctively trying to escape the wick. It's flickering. It's constantly flickering up. It's trying to escape. It's trying to release itself, to escape from its prison, the wick. It wants to escape the candle. Because the instinct of fire, the nature of fire is liparid ma'apsil, is to separate itself from the wick, from the candle. And to return to its source. That's the nature of fire. Fire always goes up. The opposite way of gravity. It's trying to get out of here. It's trying to get out of the candle, get out of the flame. It's trying to return to its source. So what does it mean, therefore, that the soul of a Jew, the godly soul of a Jew is compared to a flame? Kach nishmas adam, so it is with the Jewish soul, that what? The cheshka bitava lipar v'lotzis menagov, the natural instinct, Jewish instinct, the Jewish soul, it is instinctively trying to escape the body. Just like the flame is instinctively trying to escape the wick, trying to jump off the candle, so too this soul of a Jew that's godly, that's a piece of God, so to speak, which is compared to a candle, it's chalishing, it hates this world. It wants to escape, it wants to get out, it wants to go back to its source. The lotzis minagov, it wants to exit the body, it wants to return to its source in Hashem. To Hashem, which is the source of all life. Hagam sheti ayin ve'efes v'tizbat, even in its suicidal. The instinct of a Jew is completely suicidal. The nature, the Jewish soul, the godly soul wants to escape, it wants to return to Hashem, even though when it returns to Hashem, it won't have any sense of self. It will be completely absorbed in Hashem's awesome light. It won't have any sense of self still. It's completely suicidal. It wants to escape the world so badly and return to Hashem, even if that means that it won't have any self. This is the instinct of a Jew. Afal Pikein. Nevertheless, this is the natural inclination of the neshama. And this is something that's irrational. It's completely irrational. The animal soul is in love with the world. The animal soul doesn't want to escape. The animal soul is completely in love with the world. Yeah, and it's very difficult, but it can be. It can find Hashem from the world. As the Rambam said, it's possible. But it's so dangerous. But there's another part of us, the Jewish soul, the soul that's considered a chelik elokami mal, a part of God. Not only is it not in love with the world, it despises it. It despises physical life. It wants to escape. It naturally wants to jump out of the body like a flame wants to jump off a candle. So how does one reach love of Hashem through that soul? So that the Baal Tanya says elsewhere is by saying Shema Yisrael. In davening, we have two parts of davening. In davening, we start with Baruch Shamar, right? We say Baruch Shamar. From Baruch Shamar till Yishtabach, right? Psukim de Zimra, the psukim that we say from Tehillim, what are the psukim talking about? They're talking about the greatness of Hashem that we see from the world. All of Tehillim, all of David HaMelech, that's all he's talking about. Halos Hashem b'mroimim, that Hashem could be praised from the heavens and the earth and all the stars in heaven and all the plants on earth. It's talking about finding Hashem from nature. That's what Psukim de Zimra is about. Psukim de Zimra is talking to the animal soul. It's talking to the animal soul. Listen, that part of you that's in love with this world, try to focus and try to find Hashem in the world that you love. You're so in love with nature. You love everything you see with your fleshy eyes, with your eyes of flesh. In that, you could find Hashem's hand. The heavens, you could find Hashem. Look at what Hashem created, you could find greatness. But there's such a deeper level, there's such a deeper way of connection to Hashem. That's the next part of davening. What's the next part of davening? Shema Yisrael. What do we say? Listen, Jews. Listen. Only Jews, not Goyim. Goyim don't have a part of this. Jews who have a godly soul. Hashem Elokeinu. Hashem is our God. He's part of us. Hashem Echad. He is one. What does that mean? What is a Jew supposed to be focusing on by Shema Yisrael to awaken the instinct of the godly soul? So listen to what the Baal Tanya says. Yamik b'machshavtoi. A Jew has to meditate and deepen his thoughts in the following thing. V'yitzayir b'sichlo v'nasa, and to contemplate the following reality. Inyan yichuda yisbarach amiti. Think about the oneness of Hashem. The what? Sha'av shumamalikol al min al. That even though the world that we see is filled with Hashem's presence, and you could find Hashem from within the world, and it's true that the whole world is filled with His presence, but that's nothing. That's nothing compared to who Hashem really is. That's nothing to what Hashem's essence is. And in Hashem's place, the world is nothing. It's insignificant. It's ketipa b'yikainis. It's a drop in the Atlantic Ocean. It's nothing compared to Hashem in His true glory, where He Himself is found. What the Baal Tanya is telling us is that in order for us to awaken and to unleash the natural instinct of the godly soul that's within all of us, that's chalishing, it's waiting, it's naturally, it's craving to escape, craving to connect to Hashem, all we have to do is recognize and focus on how insignificant the world is compared to Hashem Himself. There's so different ways, and a lot of times this aspect of the Jew comes out on its own. Throughout our history, there's always been, God forbid, it shouldn't happen to any of us, occasions of Mesiras Nefesh, of cases where Goyim have forced Jews to either convert, to leave Hashem, or die. Right? Kiddush Hashem, to die al Kiddush Hashem. This has been something that throughout our history has been unfortunately posed to many, many Jews. So there's a phenomenon. There's a very strange phenomenon. Historically, it's been proven that even Jews who their entire lives are disconnected from Hashem, never focus on God, don't keep Torah mitzvahs, but when they're pushed to that point, when it's presented to them, either die al Kiddush Hashem or disconnect from the Jewish people and become a Christian, chas v'shalom, the history has proven over and over and over again that even the biggest Rishonim, the worst Jews, have always sacrificed themselves. It's brought down already by the Spanish Inquisition in 1492. The Spanish Inquisition, the Abar Benel, the leader of the Jewish people at the time, Dan Yitzchak Abar Benel, he records in his Svarim, a number of places he writes this, that when the Inquisition started and the church, again, gathered all the Jews and gave them the choice of either dying by the sword or conversion or expulsion, he says the first ones to die al Kiddush Hashem, to sacrifice their lives, were the simplest of people. It was dafka the simple, the women and children, the laymen, the people that were uneducated. Those were the ones that were the most willing to sacrifice themselves. Why? Where does that instinct, where does that suicidal tendency in the Jewish people come from? The fact that we're willing to just give up literally our lives for Hashem, even though our day-to-day lives we're not so passionate about God. So the Svarim tells us it's because when that question is posed to a Jew, either die or give up God, then the chelik elokamimal, the divine soul, the godly soul that's in each and every one of us, is automatically woken up. It's automatically well. But on every day, that part of us that's godly, that's a part of God, that's instinct, that's completely passionate to escape this body and to forget about this world, it lays dormant. On the average day, all of us, we're connected to the animal part of us, to the part of us that loves this world. And therefore, on a normal day, to awaken that part of us which is passionately in love, naturally in love with Hashem, is very, very difficult. But when that question is posed to a Jew, either die or either sacrifice your life or disconnect yourself from Hashem, then automatically that godly part of us is awakened. And that's why even the worst Jew is willing and has the strength to stand up to that Nisayon and to sacrifice his life. Because that part of him that's giving him the strength to commit suicide, to literally die al Kiddush Hashem and to sacrifice his life, it's coming from that natural instinct, that natural passion that's inside every single Jew. So the Baal HaTanya is telling us that we have two ways to love Hashem. There's two ways to love Hashem. There's loving Hashem through the animal part of us, focusing on the world and trying to find His hand in nature and to try to, understand His greatness through the world that we see around us, which is good. It's very hard to do and it's very dangerous because so many times a person could get lost, like the general that lost his way. He forgets. A Jew, while he's trying to focus on this world, trying to find Hashem, he gets lost in the waters of this world. But there's another way. There's another way to bring out such a passionate love that cannot be extinguished by any waters of this world. The Pasuk says in Shir Hashir, Mayim Rabim lo yuchlu lichbais es ahava, that all the great waters of this world cannot extinguish that flame. That part of us which is called the flame of Hashem, meaning that another way to love Hashem is to focus and to meditate on the one truth, which is that this world it's mamish meaningless compared to Hashem, compared to what it means to truly connect to Hashem in His place. Everything down here is nothing compared to that. Not trying to see Hashem's greatness from every leaf, which is great, but there's something more than that. That everything that we see is mamish nothing in comparison to the great pleasure, to the great understanding, the great experience of connecting to Hashem in His greatness. He says, that place, that experience that the godly soul in each and every one of us want and is chalishing to connect to, wants to escape to, he says that aspect is infinitely greater than the aspect that we could find Hashem in leaves and in nature and all that stuff. It's infinitely greater. And again, this is something which comes out naturally on certain occasions when a Jew is pushed to his limits of either die or give up Hashem. He's pushed his limits, that part of him is awakened naturally. This is, so let's understand. This is the difference between the 6 days of the week and Shabbos. In the 6 days of the week, the Jewish people are each and every one of us, we're so bound, we're so earthly, we're so tied down to this world. It's so hard to think about God at all during the 6 days of the week. The best we could do is try to, within the world that we see, within the nature that we see, within our life experience, to try to think about Him as much as we can, to try to find Him within the world. Using our animal part, we have no choice but to be connected to the animal part of us during the 6 days of the week. But Shabbos is a Yom Menucha. Shabbos is a day of rest. What's the peace of Shabbos? The peacefulness of Shabbos is the time where that part of us that's part of God, that part of us which is compared to a flame, is brought out, it's awakened. And on Shabbos we're able to relax and to just escape this world. That's what the Menucha of Shabbos, Rav Nachman Breslover used to say, that the Menucha of Shabbos is that, what's the peacefulness of Shabbos? It is that a Jew is able to return to the source on Shabbos. That's true peace. That's true peace. Not to be so bogged down and so earthly and so, like connected to this world that it's like impossible to even to have a few seconds to think about God. On Shabbos, that part of the Jew which is the godly soul of him is exploding. It's passionately trying to come out of him. On Shabbos, a Jew has the ability to escape this world. So what happened by the ego? What happened by the ego? Let's talk about the ego for a second. What happened by the ego? So on our level, Moshe Rabbeinu represents. Moshe Rabbeinu is a person who embodies the part of us that's godly. That's what Moshe Rabbeinu is. We'll talk about this in previous times all the time. That Moshe Rabbeinu was barely down here. I mean, even when he was here, he was never really connected to this world. He didn't experience the Gullus like the Jewish people did. Moshe Rabbeinu's name means that he's taken out of the waters of this world. He's completely uplifted. When he was here, he had to wear a veil because he was so unbelievably magnificent. The world couldn't see his physical face. Moshe Rabbeinu is the embodiment of the Chelik Kamimal, of the godly soul in each and every one of us that's naturally, that despises this world, that wants to escape, that wants to return to Hashem and passionately, that wants to just commit suicide and to escape. That's what Moshe Rabbeinu represents. When Moshe Rabbeinu was away from the Jewish people, when they thought Moshe Rabbeinu was gone, all they had left, when Moshe Rabbeinu was not there anymore, so that part of their souls, that part of themselves that was, again, the peace of God, that part that's considered a candle, a flame of Hashem, they weren't able to tap into that anymore. They lost that aspect of themselves. They said, V'ho'ish Moshe, Moshe Rabbeinu the man. We asked the question, why is it that they specifically said the man Moshe Rabbeinu? It's because they're trying to say what Moshe Rabbeinu represents as the man, as Ner Hashem Nishmas Adam, that the soul, not the animal soul, the soul of a human being, of the Jewish person that's considered a part of God, that Lo Yadanam Ha'ilo. We don't have that anymore. Moshe Rabbeinu is not here. We don't have that. All we have left is this world. All we have left is the animal part of us. So they say, listen, so we have no choice but to try to find Hashem in the animal part of the world that we see, in nature, in shadows, down here in this world. That's as much as we can. So God forbid, what happens, like we said before, the general who's searching in all the beautiful places of this world, trying to find Hashem, God forbid it happens that the Jew gets lost. And he forgets what his focus is, and he starts, instead of looking at this world trying to find Hashem, he starts looking at this world trying to find the world. And they gave their gold and their jewelry, everything that they have, their possessions, everything that represents this world to them, and that itself became an idol. It became an avodah zarah because once they lost Moshe Rabbeinu, once they lost that natural instinct of just suicidal passion to connect to Hashem, and all they were left with was the animal part of themselves, as much as they tried, and as much as they tried to find Hashem from within that animal part of themselves, it was too difficult. It was too difficult, and it became, and not only were they unsuccessful in finding Hashem, that it brought them down even further. It brought them down even further to the point of where they started serving a golden calf, literally an animal, right? They started serving an animal, like the animal part of their souls. So what Moshe Rabbeinu, when Moshe Rabbeinu came down, they realized that Moshe Rabbeinu never died. So this was the mistake of the Chet Egel. This was the mistake, that instead of recognizing, instead of finding within them the flame of Hashem, that natural instinct that every single Jewish person has to find Him, to find Hashem, to run to Hashem, to forget about this world, to not take this world so seriously, they forgot that. And they took this world extremely seriously. And they tried to find Hashem within the world. And the more focused they were on the world, the more seriously they took it, the more of an avodah zarah it became, the more of an idol it became. That was their downfall. So how do we fix that? How does each and every one of us fix this problem and to refocus ourselves and to find Hashem and to find that part of us which is godly, which naturally wants to return to Him? So Hashem said, build a Mishkan. Hashem said, build a Mishkan. Building a Mishkan was the fixing of the sin of the golden calf. How? What was we said in the beginning, what was the foundation of the Mishkan? What was its base made of? It was made of half a golden coin, half a coin that was given by each and every Jew, not more, not less. Half a coin by each person. The machzah shekel, the half a coin that each and every Jew, no matter based on his wealth, it didn't make a difference, had to give, represented his part in the part of Hashem, chelik kamimal, his godly soul. That's what it represented. That's what it was. And therefore it didn't make a difference if he was rich, didn't make a difference if he was poor. Each and every Jew, by the very fact that he's a Jew, has that within him, has that instinct, that natural inclination of passionate love for Hashem by the very fact that he's a Jew. Hadal lo yamit va'osh lo yara. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how much you know, how much you don't know. It doesn't matter how great you are, how insignificant you are. Every single Jew has that part of him that's naturally, passionately in love with Hashem. And that has to be the foundation. That is the basis. That is how a Jew becomes a true Ohev Hashem, someone who truly loves Hashem. The way out is not to take this world so seriously, to realize that this world is not as important as it seems, that there's much more depth beyond this world, that Hashem's essence, to connect to Hashem in His place, is so much more important and so much beyond anything that we could ever experience in the world that we see, that nothing else is worthwhile. Nothing else is worthwhile. And this is what it means. This was the job of the Mishkan. This is what Purim's about. We said this is tonight's Purim cut. What's Purim about? The custom is that on Purim, people dress up. They put on costumes. It's a modern thing. It's a very strange thing. Where do we get such a concept that a person should wear a costume? Because what was the story of Purim? That the Jews were so scared. They took this world so seriously. That was what Purim was, right? They took Haman so seriously. They took Achashverosh so seriously. It's so dangerous. The Goyim are plotting against us. What are we going to do? It's lost. We don't have a Beis Hamikdash anymore. Everything is forgotten. Purim taught the Jewish people, don't take the world so seriously. This world, it's a veil. This world is nothing but a dream. It's insignificant. What you see with your eyes, Haman, the big scary Haman and Achashverosh, they're insignificant. They're nothings. If Hashem wants it, Haman himself could be a vessel to give us the Yontif of Purim. Purim tells a Jew, don't take the world so seriously. And therefore the custom is to wear a costume, to tell us and to remind ourselves that the whole world is like a costume. It's insignificant. It's skin deep. It's not important. Don't take everything so seriously that you have to search within nature to find Hashem. Don't take it so seriously. Remember that there's a part of you which is instinctively above this world. There's a part of you which is instinctively godlike. And it's in that part of you where you can mamish escape and forget about this world and forget about all your troubles. That's why the mitzvah on Purim is to drink until you don't know what's going on, right? The rest of all the other mitzvahs of the year is about understanding, about focusing, about reaching a level of understanding. Purim is the one day, drink until you don't know what's going on. Why? Because that's what Purim is telling you. Don't take things so seriously. To say jokes, make fun of Goyim, make fun of the nations, make fun of our enemies, make fun of it all, because it's all stupid. When Haman's name comes, clap Haman, let the kids go crazy, let everybody drink. Don't take everything so seriously. That's what Purim is about. And that's the way out of the Chet Egel. The sin of the golden calf was that the world, they forgot Moshe Rabbeinu in themselves. They forgot that part of themselves which is above this world. And they took everything so seriously, their gold, their silver, until they turned it into an idol. The way out is to remember that each and every one of us has within him, no matter undetermined based on his level, has within him a part of God which is above and beyond all things in this world. And that's our escape. That's the way how a Jew loves Hashem. In an unbelievably passionate love. To focus on this and to remember, Shema Yisrael, listen every Jew. God is one. The whole world, it's oneness. The world that we see, which has so many different parts, don't focus on that. It's insignificant compared to the oneness of Hashem. So we'll end with a Maisa. There's a famous story, I think it was said over by Rosh Shlomo Karbach, but the story goes like this, that the Tzemach Tzedek, the third Lubavitcher Rebbe, one of his students was someone by the name of Rav Isaac Humler. That was his name, Rav Isaac of Hummel. So the story goes that Rav Isaac Humler was sent by his Rebbe, the third Lubavitcher Rebbe, to go spend Shabbos by the Rishner. The Rishner was the third Lubavitcher was in Russia. So the Rishner Rebbe, he was in Poland. And he was again one of the greatest Rebbes of the time. Yisrael from Rizhin. So the story goes that the Tzemach Tzedek sent his student, Rav Isaac of Hummel, to go spend Shabbos by the Rishner. So his first experience with the Rishner, he said the following thing, that he first came into the room, again they introduced him, this is a great student of the Tzemach Tzedek, and it was a few minutes before Shabbos. So he was figuring that he was going into the room, that, I don't know, the Rishner would be, making hachanas, meditating about Hashem, getting ready for Shabbos. So he walked into the room, and a few minutes before candlelighting, the Rishner was just sitting there smoking a pipe. Smoking the pipe, and the Rishner was like a tremendous smoker. They say actually that he couldn't even handle Shabbos not smoking, so they had like one room that was just full of tobacco smoke. That every once in a while on Shabbos he would just go into that room and breathe in there. That's how addicted he was. But anyway, so he was a few minutes before Shabbos. He has a few minutes left, so he was smoking his pipe, getting ready for Shabbos. So he's just sitting there smoking, like nothing's doing. Okay, Isaac Humler is sitting there, just waiting for something to happen. So all of a sudden, like 30 seconds before candlelighting, he starts putting away his pipe, and he stands up and he walks to the window, and he's just staring out the window, looking at the sky. So he's standing there for a minute or so. Okay, so he goes over Rav Isaac. He says, "Come over here. Look at what I'm seeing." So he comes over to the window and he says, "Do you see what I see?" "I don't know. I see the sky and clouds." So Karbach said this much better than I will, but he said, so the Rishner said, "Isaac, what do you see?" He said, "I see the sky." He says, "I don't see the sky. I see the sky of the 6 days of the week moving away for the sky of Shabbos." And he said, I see the clouds of the 6th day of the week disappearing and making room for the clouds of Shabbos. I see the ground of the 6 days of the week moving away and making room for the ground of Shabbos, the grass of Shabbos, the leaves of Shabbos. It's a different planet. Don't you see that? That's what the Rishner said Shabbos is. That's what Shabbos is about. Shabbos is not that in this world we're a little bit better. Shabbos is a different planet. Purim is a different planet. Purim and Shabbos is telling a Jew, Moshe Rabbeinu tells a Jew, don't take things so seriously. The world that you see, it's not as important as meets the eye. The world that you see today, it's not the same on Shabbos. It's a different planet. The perspective of Shabbos is that the world that you see is insignificant. And the way to serve Hashem, the way to connect to Hashem is to remind ourselves of that oneness, that part of us which is so instinctively in love with Hashem, passionately, that is willing to sacrifice everything for Him. So the more we think about this, the more we dedicate ourselves to try to remember and to try to not take things so seriously. And to remember that, Hashem is really in control and everything we see is really just smoke and mirrors. The more we focus on this, the more we'll become in tune and in touch with that part of us which is sublime. And the more we connect to that, the closer we'll get to B'is Mashiach Tzidkenu, B'meher V'yameinu, Amen.